Doris Day's only grandson says he was kept from seeing the Hollywood legend for the last 14 years of her life.
Doris Day's grandson, Ryan Melcher, has lived much of his life away from the spotlight. But at 41, he's finally sharing what many have long suspected. His revelations offer a rare glimpse into his personal journey and his complicated connection to the beloved Hollywood icon.
Why do you want to see Doris? I just responded, she is my grandmother.
From family rifts to hidden chapters in Doris Day's life, Ryan's words are sparking new conversations about the actress America adored. What did he reveal that has everyone talking? Let's dive into the truth behind the headlines.
He says the new family turmoil is upsetting.
Doris was all about one of the most loving people I've ever met.
The rise of Doris Day, the journey from heartbreak to stardom. Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff was born on April 3, 1922, in Cincinnati, Ohio, into a working-class family. Her father, William, was a music teacher, and her mother, Alma, was a homemaker. She had two older brothers, but one, Richard, died before she was born. When Doris was young, her parents' marriage ended in a bitter divorce, leaving her and her mother to navigate life's challenges alone. Doris's first love was dance, and she dreamed of becoming a professional dancer. But at 14, just as she was preparing to move to Hollywood to train, tragedy struck. A horrific car accident shattered her leg, ending her dance ambitions. Confined to bed for over a year, she found comfort in music. Inspired by Ella Fitzgerald, she began singing along to the radio, and her mother noticed her natural talent. Alma arranged for her to take vocal lessons with Grace Rain, a respected voice coach. Grace was stunned by Doris's ability, calling her the most naturally gifted student she had ever trained. By 15, Doris was singing professionally, earning $5 a night at a local Chinese restaurant. Her big break came when band leader Barney Rapp overheard her at a nightclub. He needed a female vocalist but faced a problem. Doris was underage. To bypass the law, she claimed to be 18. It worked, and in 1939, at Rapp's suggestion, she changed her last name. Inspired by her performance of Day After Day, she became Doris Day. She disliked the name at first, but it soon became legendary. Her career soared when she joined Les Brown's band in 1940. Her audition nearly didn't happen. Overcome with nerves, she wanted to back out. Les Brown himself had to convince her, and when she finally sang Embraceable You, she stunned the band with her talent. Soon, she became their lead singer. But just as success seemed certain, tragedy struck again.
I would have worked, if I could have found something that I really loved.
On February 14, 1941, she lost her brother Paul in a car accident. Devastated, Doris still performed that night, delivering an emotional performance that left the audience in tears. In 1945, she recorded Sentimental Journey, a song Brown initially dismissed as outdated. But Doris believed in it so much that she threatened to quit if they didn't record it. Reluctantly, they did, and it became a massive hit. It sold over 1 million copies and became an anthem for World War II soldiers returning home. Ironically, she recorded it while battling a cold, giving her voice a husky, heartfelt quality that became her signature. By 1947, Doris was ready for a solo career. She signed a 7-year contract with Columbia Records worth $1 million, an extraordinary deal for a female artist at the time. Her first recording session frustrated her. The songs she was given felt uninspired. She insisted on choosing her material, leading to the recording of It's Magic, which sold over 2 million copies and earned an Oscar nomination. Remarkably, she recorded it in one take, leaving the studio speechless. Her star continued to rise in Hollywood. In 1953, she recorded Secret Love for the film Calamity Jane. Initially, she disliked the song and refused to record it. Desperate, the film's director, David Butler, visited her late at night with a pianist and a bottle of champagne, convincing her to give it a chance. The next day, despite personal turmoil from a fight with her husband, she recorded the song in a single breathtaking take. It topped the charts for 19 weeks, sold over 4 million copies, and won an Academy Award. But despite its success, Doris refused to perform it at the Oscars due to her extreme stage fright, earning her a reputation for being difficult. Years later, Secret Love took on an unexpected meaning. By the 1970s, it had become an anthem for the LGBTQ+ community, its lyrics reflecting hidden emotions and struggles. When Doris learned of this, she was deeply touched and openly expressed her support, a bold stance for her time. But Doris's journey was far from over. What do you think changed everything for Doris Day? Raw talent, sheer luck, or fate working behind the scenes? Stay tuned to find out. Doris Day becoming a Hollywood star. Fate had a way of shaping Doris Day's journey to stardom. One evening at a lively party, two renowned songwriters, Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn, heard her sing. They were so captivated by her voice that they urged her to try acting. As luck would have it, their suggestion came at the perfect time. Betty Hutton, who had been cast as the lead in Romance on the High Seas in 1948, had to step down due to pregnancy. At just 25 years old, Doris had never acted before, and the thought of stepping into a major Hollywood film was daunting. Despite her nerves, she took the leap. The film's director, Michael Curtis, immediately saw something special in her, calling her the most everything girl he had ever seen. The risk paid off. Doris was a natural on screen. She exuded such effortless charm and grace that audiences assumed she had been acting for years. Romance on the High Seas became a hit, launching her film career and securing her a long-term contract with Warner Brothers. By the 1950s, Doris Day was not just a rising star. She was one of the biggest names in Hollywood musicals. In Calamity Jane in 1953, she took on the role of the feisty, adventurous frontierswoman, a stark contrast to the sweet and innocent characters she had previously played. Determined to make her performance as authentic as possible, she insisted on performing her own stunts, including a daring leap onto a moving stagecoach. The stunt left her with a broken rib, but the film was a massive success, grossing over $3.7 million and cementing its place as a beloved classic. She followed up with The Pajama Game in 1957, a lively musical set in a pajama factory. The film, adapted from a popular Broadway show, kept most of its original cast, except for Doris, who was brought in as the leading lady. Her song Hey There became a chart-topping hit, and her energetic performance made the film a box office triumph, earning $5 million. At this point, she was not just an actress, she was a phenomenon.
No, it's just that it's very difficult to find a great script.
Yeah.
A pivotal moment in Doris Day's career came in 1955 with Love Me or Leave Me. Up until then, she had been known for light-hearted musicals, but this film introduced audiences to a different side of her talent. She portrayed Ruth Etting, a real-life singer entangled in a toxic and abusive relationship with a gangster manager. The role was emotionally intense, and even Etting herself admitted, "I never knew I was that good." Critics praised Doris's dramatic depth, and co-star James Cagney believed she deserved an Oscar nomination. The film grossed over $4 million, proving that she was not just a singer or a performer. She was an actress of remarkable range. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Doris Day ruled Hollywood. From 1960 to 1964, she was the top box office star in America, a record previously held only by Shirley Temple. One of her biggest hits was Pillow Talk, a romantic comedy co-starring Rock Hudson. The film had a production budget of $3 million but raked in over $18 million. Her on-screen chemistry with Hudson was electric, leading to two more successful films, Lover Come Back and Send Me No Flowers. By 1965, Doris Day had become Hollywood's most bankable actress, with her films earning over $200 million. She commanded a staggering $750,000 per movie, along with a share of the profits. Audiences adored her, not just for her acting, but also for her impeccable style and unforgettable songs. She wasn't just a Hollywood star, she was an icon. Being America's sweetheart wasn't always easy. Doris Day later admitted that maintaining a flawless public image was exhausting, yet her impact on movies, music, and culture was undeniable. Her career took unexpected turns, including starring in The Doris Day Show from 1968 to 1973. Initially, a light-hearted family comedy set on a California ranch, the show reinvented itself each season, introducing new characters and settings. Fans never knew what to expect, making it one of television's most unpredictable series. What do you really know about Doris Day's life off-screen? Behind the charm was a world of heartbreak, an abusive marriage at 17, betrayal, and public humiliation. How did she endure it all and still become an icon? Stay tuned. Doris Day's smile behind the scene. Doris Day's radiant smile and effortless charm made her one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. But behind the scenes, her personal life was marred by heartbreak, betrayal, and devastating losses. She endured abusive relationships, financial ruin, and painful deception, yet she continued to captivate audiences with her talent and resilience. At just 17, Doris married 23-year-old trombonist Al Jordan in April 1941, despite her mother's strong objections. She believed she was in love, but the reality was far darker. Jordan was possessive and violently abusive. The nightmare began on their wedding day when, consumed by jealousy, he accused her of infidelity over an innocent kiss on the cheek. That night, he dragged her through the streets of New York before brutally beating her in their hotel room. This was only the beginning. Jordan's rages grew more terrifying, and he humiliated her in public, once slapping her in the face after seeing her picture in a magazine. The violence reached its peak when Doris became pregnant with their son Terry. Jordan determined that she should have an abortion, flew into a rage when she refused. He beat her so severely that she nearly lost the baby. In her 8th month of pregnancy, he took his cruelty to an even more horrifying level. Hiding a gun in his car, he drove Doris to a deserted location, threatening to end both their lives. Terrified but thinking quickly, Doris managed to calm him down and escape. The trauma haunted her for the rest of her life. She later admitted she could never sit in the front seat of a car again without reliving that terrifying night. In February 1942, she gave birth to her son, Terry. For a brief moment, she hoped that motherhood might soften Jordan's heart, but his abuse continued. When he started taking his rage out on their baby, Doris knew she had to leave. She found the courage to file for divorce and never looked back. Hoping for a fresh start, Doris married saxophonist George Weidler in 1946. They had met while performing in the same band, and at first, their relationship seemed promising. Doris, now a single mother, longed for stability, and Weidler appeared to be the loving partner she needed. However, after they moved to Hollywood, his attitude changed. He grew distant, uninterested in being a stepfather, and resentful of Doris's rising fame. The final blow came just 8 months into their marriage. He confessed he couldn't handle being married to someone more successful than him. Heartbroken, Doris once again found herself alone. The divorce was finalized in 1949, and she returned home to Cincinnati with Terry, seeking comfort and time to heal. Then came Martin Melcher, the man she believed would finally bring her happiness. They married in 1951, and Melcher not only became her husband, but also took control of her career, serving as her manager. For nearly 2 decades, Doris trusted him completely, unaware of the betrayal unfolding behind the scenes. Melcher, along with his business partner Jerome Rosenthal, was secretly draining her fortune, making reckless investments and shady deals without her knowledge. Doris worked tirelessly throughout the 1950s and 1960s, starring in films that cemented her as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. She had no reason to suspect that every dollar she earned was being squandered. By the time Melcher passed away suddenly in 1968, the truth was finally revealed. Her entire fortune, worth what would be over $150 million today, was gone. Worse, she was left with $500,000 in debt. But the betrayal didn't end there. Melcher had secretly signed Doris up for a television show, The Doris Day Show, without even telling her. She only found out a few weeks before filming was set to begin. It was the last thing she wanted. She had planned to retire after her final film in 1968, but she had no choice.
I didn't really decide to leave show business. I wasn't going to do that at all.
With no money left, she was forced to step in front of the cameras to pay off the crushing debts Melcher had left behind. Determined to reclaim some of what was taken from her, Doris sued Rosenthal in a legal battle that lasted years. In 1974, she won a $22 million settlement, but after insurance negotiations, she received only a small fraction of that amount. The financial loss was devastating, but the emotional damage cut even deeper. She had trusted Melcher completely, never questioning his decisions, and in the end, he had deceived her at every turn. Doris Day, on the verge of collapse. Doris Day's life may have seemed like a dream, but behind her dazzling smile was a world of struggle. Fame brought fortune, but it didn't shield her from anxiety and depression, battles she fought for most of her life. Even at the peak of her career, fear gripped her. In 1952, while filming I'll See You in My Dreams, she suffered a severe breakdown. The symptoms were so intense that she believed she had a heart condition, but instead of seeking help, Doris turned to alcohol, burying her pain beneath a picture-perfect exterior. By the early 1950s, her mental health had deteriorated. She avoided public events, refused interviews, and withdrew from the limelight. While filming Young at Heart in 1954, an emotional scene left her in tears.
Yes, I'm sorry. The car's outside. Hey, Laurie, get the coats.
It was co-star Frank Sinatra who consoled her, but deep down, Doris feared she was on the verge of a complete collapse. Shockingly, she didn't seek therapy until 1971, when she was nearly 50 years old. For 4 years, she worked with a therapist, finally finding some measure of peace. Beyond her personal struggles, Doris was a devoted mother. Her only child, Terry Melcher, was born on February 8, 1942. For years, she raised him alone until her 1951 marriage to Martin Melcher, who adopted Terry as his own. But life at home was far from idyllic. Martin was strict and controlling, forcing Terry to carve his own path. By the 1960s, Terry had made a name for himself in the music industry. As a producer at Columbia Records, he helped shape some of the decade's biggest hits, including Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn for the Byrds. He later worked with Paul Revere and the Raiders and even produced Kokomo for the Beach Boys in 1988, their first #1 hit in 22 years. But Terry's story took a dark turn in 1968. He was living on Cielo Drive in Los Angeles with actress Candice Bergen when he crossed paths with Charles Manson. Introduced by Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson, Manson sought a record deal from Terry. When Terry refused, Manson was furious. A few months later, Terry moved out of the house. Shortly after, Manson's followers murdered Sharon Tate and her friends there. Some believe Terry was the real target, but no one will ever know for sure. Doris Day's lifetime devotion to animal welfare. Doris Day's love for animals wasn't just a passing interest. It was a lifelong mission fueled by a heartbreaking childhood memory. As a young girl, she adored her dog, Tiny, but tragedy struck when he was hit by a car. The helplessness she felt in that moment never left her, and as she grew older, she vowed to dedicate her life to protecting animals. Even during her Hollywood years, Doris refused to ignore animal suffering.
Go to your city shelter today and adopt a pet. The cost is very small.
In 1956, while filming The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco, she was horrified by the mistreatment of animals on set. She took a stand, refusing to continue working until the animals were properly cared for. Her insistence led to real changes, including the establishment of a feeding station for local animals. It was a defining moment that showed not only her compassion, but also the power of her voice. After the Doris Day show ended in 1973, Doris made a bold decision. She walked away from acting to focus entirely on animal welfare. In 1978, she founded the Doris Day Pet Foundation, a small but passionate effort to support local rescues. Over time, it expanded, evolving into the Doris Day Animal Foundation, which tackled larger issues like animal overpopulation, medical care for rescue animals, and education programs to promote responsible pet ownership. One of Doris's biggest came in 1995 when she launched World Spay Day, an initiative to encourage spaying and neutering pets to prevent overpopulation. The campaign quickly gained traction, spreading to over 70 countries and improving the lives of millions of animals. Doris didn't just advocate for change, she lived it. At her home in Carmel Valley, California, she created a sanctuary where she personally rescued and cared for countless animals. At any given time, she could have up to 30 dogs, all receiving the love and attention they had never known before. Doris also used her celebrity status to push for legislative change, speaking out against animal cruelty and lobbying for better protections. Even as she stepped away from Hollywood, her influence in the world of animal welfare only grew stronger. But in 2011, she surprised everyone with an unexpected return to the music scene. At 89 years old, she released My Heart, an album filled with previously unreleased songs from the 1980s. The album was deeply personal, featuring tracks written by her late son, Terry Melcher. One song, Happy Endings, even included Terry's voice alongside hers, making it an emotional tribute. The album was a huge success. It reached number 9 on the UK Albums Chart, making Doris the oldest artist to achieve a top 10 album with new material. In the US, it marked her first Billboard appearance in nearly 50 years. Yet, despite the success, Doris remained true to her mission. She stayed out of the spotlight, dedicating her final years to the cause closest to her heart. What do you think drove her more, the music or her mission? Even after making history, Doris chose a path away from fame. Stay tuned to discover more. Doris Day's Hidden Heartache, the untold story of her final years. By the time Doris Day passed away on May 13, 2019 at her beloved home in Carmel Valley, California, the world mourned the loss of a legendary actress and animal rights advocate. But behind the charming facade of her peaceful ranch life, a far more complicated and heartbreaking reality was unfolding, one that would only come to light after her death. Her only grandson, Ryan Melcher, had adored his grandmother from afar, yet for 14 long years, he was completely shut out of her life. The shocking revelation emerged when Ryan, like millions of others, learned of Doris's passing through a Facebook post. For Ryan, then 41, the news confirmed a painful truth he had long suspected. Someone had been keeping them apart. The roots of this estrangement trace back to 2004 when Doris's only child, Terry Melcher, a successful music producer and the bridge between Ryan and Doris, died at 62. Terry's passing left a void that no one could fill. Shortly after, Doris extended what seemed like an olive branch, inviting Ryan to dinner. Having felt the strain in their relationship since his parents' divorce in 1997, Ryan saw this as a chance to reconnect. But before the reunion could happen, he received a surprising call from Bob Bashara, Doris's business manager. Meeting at the Cypress Inn, a charming boutique hotel in Carmel co-owned by Doris, Ryan was met with a chilling question. "Why do you want to see Doris?" Stunned, he replied, "Because she's my grandmother." The response left him speechless. He was told he wouldn't be allowed to visit her, citing family conflicts and decisions made by his parents. That single meeting closed the door to any future attempts at reconciliation. As years passed, Ryan's efforts to reach out were met with silence. Reports later suggested Bashara had taken extensive steps to limit Doris's interactions, including installing security gates around her property. To the outside world, Doris remained a beloved figure, known for her warmth and compassion, especially toward animals. But behind the scenes, she lived in isolation. When Ryan broke his silence after her passing, his Facebook post resonated deeply with fans who couldn't reconcile the image of Doris Day, the sunny Hollywood star, with a grandmother estranged from her family. Bashara denied blocking access, claiming attempts were made to reconnect them, and pointed to Ryan's earlier request on his website for privacy regarding his famous grandmother. Yet skepticism lingered. Doris spent her final years far from Hollywood's glitz, dedicating her time to animal welfare on her 11-acre ranch. Her days were simple, rescuing dogs, eating off paper plates, and shunning accolades, even declining the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But despite her desire for privacy, questions about how such a loving figure could be cut off from her grandson continue to puzzle those who knew her. What do you think about Doris Day's attitude? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.